tips on successfully finding an apartment, how I worked out my visa, how much is rent, what's the process like, how do you find recommendations for good areas to live in, what was the hardest part about apartment hunting in Paris. I've had a few people asking me what neighborhood I'm in and what it's like, what were all the documents you had prepared, how long are you planning to be there for, from when you moved to Paris till now, where have you been staying, do you have a favorite and least favorite room in the apartment, how many square meter were you looking at and which part of the city and why? Did you find your apartment on an English website? Was it hard communicating with real estate agents? How long should I book an Airbnb for before? Did you have trouble not having a French guarantor? Hello, I am talking to you from my new apartment. I'm finally here and I'm in my apartment. This is crazy. I've had so many questions because I feel like a lot of people dream of doing this and I am lucky enough to have so far successfully done it. So I thought I'd answer some questions in a little separate video. A little bit about me. My name's Sienna and I am Australian. I've moved all the way from Australia to Paris. It was definitely on a whim. I booked my one-way tickets in February and I'll get a little bit more into the situation that I'm in. I'm definitely in a little bit more of an advantage situation than other people, but I'm about to turn 23. I think by the time you watch this, I will be 23. Crazy. I'm a massive art lover. I love reading. I love time by myself and beautiful gardens. So to me, Paris has always just made sense. I was living in northern New South Wales for quite a few years. So I've come from a small town to the city and I'm personally really enjoying the difference. All right, let's get into the questions. First of all, how long are you planning to be there for? That's a hard question. And I think a few people have asked this, but I just signed a 3-year lease, and granted, being in France, you don't have to do the full lease. You just have to give them 3 months notice, especially with unfurnished, I'm pretty sure. But I could potentially be here for 3 years. I definitely want to be staying at least a year, even more, but I currently can't imagine going back to Australia. What was the hardest part about apartment hunting in Paris? I think the fact that I really struggled to be present in the first bits of my time here. The rejection's definitely difficult, and communicating, well, in my situation, the lack of communicating is also super hard. I was always on my phone, checking my emails, checking Selloger, applying to apartments, so I feel like I'm only now really being present. From when you moved to Paris till now, where have you been staying? So we actually booked a 6-week Airbnb, and it's so funny because Layla, the girl that I was living with, and I were tossing up between 2 months in this Airbnb or 6 weeks, and I just had a weird feeling. I just said, let's do 6 weeks, and if not, we can extend, but I just think that we should do 6 weeks. And it actually worked out perfectly because we moved into the apartment a day before our Airbnb ended. What's the process like? How do you find recommendations for good areas to live in? For me, finding an apartment, I got my dossier, applied for my dossier on Dossier for Charles, or for Sale, I don't know. And then just went on Selloger, the website, Paris Attitude, Jinka, Pair, and pretty much refreshed and applied to every single apartment that I saw that I aligned with, and you just wait to hear back. A lot of the time someone will upload an apartment and within 30 minutes they've already allocated all the spots for viewings, so that's really difficult. You have to really be on it. But then you go to your apartment viewing if you're lucky enough to get one. I had 2 apartment viewings that were one-on-one, but most of my apartment viewings were actually group viewings, which is terrifying because everyone else was speaking French and it felt like I was the only one that wasn't fluent. After that, you send in your dossier again and you confirm your interest, and you hear back usually within 48 hours. In terms of finding good areas to live in Paris, I think you really have to think about what you're here for, what you align with. Some people probably are not into really populated areas, so they go a little bit on the outskirts. It also depends on budget. For a lot of people that I know, they couldn't really afford to live in Paris, so they went on the outskirts and they actually really love it. But if you want to be more central, you go to the first arrondissement or the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, somewhere in the heart of Paris. But I think it's really about maybe coming to Paris before and seeing what areas you like, exploring them, spending maybe a day in each different area. It's really just personal preference. Do you have a favorite and least favorite room in the apartment? That's so cute. By now you'd have seen the room tour of my freaking apartment. It's actually a Paris penthouse is what my friends have been calling it. My favorite room, I think it's not a room, but the balcony. I love the balcony. My room itself is quite small, but I love it. But I think the balcony is what excites me the most. My least favorite room has to be, I don't know, I really love my apartment. Probably the bathroom, because the door doesn't close and she's a bit tight for storage and a bit small, but I'm so grateful for my apartment. Like, it's so beautiful. How many square meter were you looking at and which part of the city and why? In terms of square meters, I just wanted anything originally above 35, and then I started expanding my search, so anything above 25 was ideal for me. The dream would be like 45 square meters or something like that, but it's so rare in Paris. All the apartments are so tiny. In terms of where I wanted to live in the city, I would say I really wanted to be in the heart somewhere. I love the east of Paris, so the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. Well, the 5th is kind of south, but I love that area as well. And the 11th, even the 10th. Did you find your apartment on an English website? No, I found my apartment on sienna. None of the other websites are really good for me. A lot of my friends, majority of my friends, have all got their apartments from Paris Attitude, which is an English website, and I would really recommend if you just want to do something a bit easier and you don't want an unfurnished apartment. For me personally, I was really trying to get an unfurnished apartment. So with sienna, if you look at it on your computer, you can do the translate. However, on your phone, a lot of the time it's all in French, so I had to screenshot so many things and put it into the Google Translate to see what it was actually saying and what I was applying for. I've had a few questions about how I worked out my visa, and this is my very privileged position that I'm in, but I'm actually an Italian citizen. So if you're a European citizen, you actually don't need a visa, and that's why I was allowed to stay in this apartment, because I was an Italian citizen and I was signing a 3-year contract, and they knew that I can actually be here for 3 years and not have to worry. But a lot of my friends said that their visa process was quite easy and quite affordable. You basically book an appointment, you go into the visa center, I'm unsure, and you apply from there. I wish that I could give more tips, but very luckily for me, I'm in a very privileged position. Tips on successfully finding an apartment. That's really hard because it's such a hit or miss. Like, it's such a game. It feels like this emotionally toxic relationship, and that's what I was saying. I had a couple of people ask me on dates, but I just kept saying, I'm sorry, but I'm in a toxic situationship with sienna and the Paris rental market. You're just fully consumed in it, and it can feel really isolating sometimes, especially doing it on your own. But I think writing a good dossier, having all your documents ready, having a guarantor or guarant me, which is what I used, and really just giving yourself grace. A lot of people say it takes 2 to 4 months to find an apartment. I'm definitely a very special exception with my month and a half. Maybe try and learn some French as well. I definitely regret not touching up on my French before I came, because it made it a little bit difficult speaking to agents. I've had a lot of sweet messages as well saying, congratulations, you made it, Europe will transform you, and I really do believe that that is so true. I feel like I'm already a different person and I'm so much more happier in myself and my creative work, and it's exactly why I moved here. Was it hard communicating with real estate agents? Yes, it was. I went to a few apartment viewings where some people didn't speak any English, which of course is my fault because I'm in a French country, I should be speaking French, and I only know the basics, and if I did need to communicate, I could have asked a friend or communicated on email or on Google Translate, which is so annoying. But a lot of people in France do speak English, but I wouldn't come into the rental scheme expecting that they're going to be speaking English, because I feel like it can be taken the wrong way. And I think effort is always appreciated, especially in Paris. I've had a few people asking me what neighborhood I'm in and what it's like, and unfortunately, I can't really share that because of privacy and safety reasons. But the location for me is such a dream, and I am paying a little bit extra with my rent to be able to be in the location that I want to be. Currently apartment hunting in Paris right now. How long should I book an Airbnb for before? I would definitely say maybe 2 months, and then going from there, maybe booking in another Airbnb later on. It's so unpredictable on how quickly or how long it's going to take for you to get an apartment. But at least if you get it a little bit earlier before, then you have time to move in, because it was a little bit of a rush job, and obviously we're working with very minimal furniture at the moment here. So it's just a hit or miss. What were all the documents you had prepared? Oh, I need to remember what I had in my dossier. I think I had my 3 most recent payslips, proof of address, proof of savings, a work contract, which I didn't have, so I had to do a really simple process of this online document basically declaring that I swear that I have a job and this is what I do. It's some legal document that you have to sign, very formal, very fancy. I did a big letter in the beginning explaining my situation, pretty much begging for an apartment, explaining that I love interior design, so you know that the apartment's going to be cared for and loved very dearly. I'm not a partier. I gave my backstory on why I moved to Paris, and I feel like I made it very personal, and in the end it did work for me. How much is rent? It depends. It really depends where you're living, what you're looking for, how big your apartment is, if it's a 1-bedroom, a studio. The places that I looked at ranged from probably 900 euros to 2,000. My apartment is 1,600 euros, not including electricity, which I had to set up the other day. It is more than I wanted to pay, and a lot of the time you have to prove that you earn 3 to 4 times the amount of your income. I had a few lucky months with my pay slips, so it worked out really, really well for me. But as a creative and a freelancer, they hate you pretty much. It's one thing to not be French, but it's another thing to be a freelancer with no work contract. It just makes it 10 times harder. I just need to work harder. I'll probably end up getting a job to be able to afford to live here, but it's all part of the experience. Did you have trouble not having a French guarantor? Paperwork in France is crazy. Yes, it is. The guarantor situation is very, very interesting. I ended up getting quite desperate, saying that I am happy to pay 3 to 6 months of rent in advance. I didn't know how I would be pulling that off, but I was going to tap into my house savings and just give them money in advance so they know that I can pay. The purpose of a guarantor is someone who says, yes, I will cover rent if this person can't. So they just want security, which I think is fair enough, but it's so difficult because a lot of the time they want a real French guarantor. So as a French person, your family, your work, your partner. But obviously I have no French relatives, so it was really, really difficult. There are things like Bizarre, I think that's the name of it, and Garant Me. I did Garant Me, which you have to pay a fee each year, which is a pain in itself, but you know, you live and you learn. It got me an apartment. A few places denied me because I didn't have a French guarantor or a work contract, so they are a bit funny with it, but I find a lot of the modern ones and the modern agencies don't really care if you have a Garant Me or a real guarantor. And finally, someone asked, would you ever move anywhere else in the world? And if so, where? This feels a little bit irrelevant, but I wanted to answer it anyways because it is on the topic of rentals. This is my first rental, and I've lived in different areas of Australia, but it's my first rental overseas, obviously. Originally, I was tossing up between Firenze and Paris. I think I've always really wanted to live in Italy somewhere. I currently can't really imagine going home, but if I was to go home, I think I would move to Melbourne. I can't really imagine myself ever returning to northern New South Wales permanently. Maybe one day with a family and kids, like, it'd be a beautiful area to raise a family and kids, but it's just so limited, and that's why I moved. There's no diversity. It's harder to embrace the creative industry as well. I think I'm open to a lot of places to live, but Italy would be a dream, absolutely. But that is all for my little Q&A. I hope that helped. I can't think of anything else at the moment, but if you do have questions, write them below and I will answer them, because I know how hard it is to find a freaking apartment in Paris. It's really the trenches out there, and it's a dog-eats-dog world, unfortunately. But if you are looking for an apartment in Paris or anywhere, keep your head up. You're going to find one, even when it feels like you aren't. I had so many mental breakdowns and spirals, and I documented a lot of it, but so many phone calls with my parents going, I feel like I'm never going to find anywhere, and eventually it came up and here I am. I'm so grateful for this next chapter in my life, and I'm so excited. I've had so many new people join us, which is so fun because I'm just building this community of people who kind of resonate and relate to me. But I can't wait to decorate the apartment and share with you what I'm doing. I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for watching this short little Q&A, and I will see you in the next vlog.